after someone had spoken, and she says, I have something to say. She says, I've heard all of these great things. You got a lot of great ideas. We've gotten all of these great statistics. But she said, I've come to places like this before. She says, give me an assignment. Give me something that I can do. Be very specific about what I can do so that I can move beyond rhetoric to action. And I think that's what I'm hearing from Nate is that we have to move beyond just knowing what's wrong, but we have to move towards action. And I agree that action is required. In fact, Dr. King was very strategic in terms of what was to take place, but there was actions, there were timelines and benchmarks and measures attached to the things that they were doing in the civil rights movement. And you'll see that in the movie. Let's go to Dunn. And Judge, I'll let you respond to the latter part after we bring Dunn in. Dunn, you got the power. What's your comment?
Hello, I do have the power, and we do have the power when we exercise it. I just wanted to say hello to you, Mayor Neal. It was great hearing your show. And just recently got off work. And to Pastor Judge Hunter, I would like to say your faith speaks volumes.
Thank you.
And to God be the glory for what you have done. And I thank you for what you have done and how the Lord has used you from media to where you are now. The Lord has used you in a great deal, and you have shaken up some things. And I just wanted to thank you and thank all the supporters and things of that nature and those that continue and that stand with you, that we continue to stand with you even in 2015. So I'm just really excited about what the Lord has done. And you know how they talk about the Lord comes at the midnight hour and things of that nature.
That's
the
right.
Lord always comes through. It's on His time, and sometimes we want to like, Lord, where are you for real? But He always shows Himself to be God, and that's what's so wonderful about it. So I just wanted to share that with you. Continue to listen in, and I know you can't speak on this, but I'm sure the nation will know in regards to the juvenile court lawsuit, that there is a lawsuit going on, and I know the listening audience would like to know more about that nationally and not, of course, on this platform. But we would like to know more about what that is all about. So I just wanted to share that with you and let you know I'm listening and continue to support you, and thank you for this show and this platform.
Thank you. And Shirley Don is one that has been there throughout and been there for the long haul, and I certainly appreciate that. It's one thing to talk about it. It's a whole other thing to be about it and to really put your money where your mouth is and to stand up and show your physical body and person. And so, again, to everyone that has done that throughout, on New Year's Eve, again, at the Watch Night service when we were sharing testimonies and the things that we were grateful for, and I said to my church, I was grateful that I never had to go to court alone, not a day. The court was always full, and usually there were people staying outside that they wouldn't let in, and it means a lot when you can look behind you, as egregious as the situation or circumstance that you happen to be in, but know that you're not alone. And so that meant so much, and it continues to mean a whole lot to me. And so I just want everyone to know, regardless of whatever role you play, whether you think it's minor or large, whatever it might be, I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart that I'm very grateful. And I want to go ahead and, if it's okay, Mayor, to address Mr. Livingston's question.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
He raised some very good questions. I'm glad he brought it up because I had intended to speak about that, because when I ran for office in 2010, that was one of the things that I spoke about, not just the delinquency aspect of the juvenile court. That's just a small portion, actually, of what we do at juvenile court. But juvenile court covers the entire family. It's not just children that are impacted.
Hey, Judge, could you restate the question as you understood it, so that for people who may have come in late and didn't hear the question, that people will know what you're responding to?
Okay, I'll do my best to restate what he said. But bottom line is, he wanted me to show the impact that juvenile court has, not just on children, but on families as a whole. Not just on children, but on adults. So we didn't just handle children issue or delinquency issues. I handled adults And so, I mean, I had cases of abuse, child abuse, that I handled on a regular basis involving adults. But you have the delinquency side, obviously dealing with children, but then you also have the abuse, dependency, and neglect. And people don't realize, and maybe some do because you may have experienced that people families are split up regularly, and children are taken through a process. Someone may file a complaint down at Children's Services, and that complaint gets processed through the juvenile court system, and that means there's an emergency hearing to determine whether or not a child should be removed from their home. So that's not delinquency. Now you're talking about adults, and so the decision to whether or not to remove that child is going to be made at the juvenile court under a magistrate that works for the judge. Magistrates hear a lot of our cases initially, but they all work at the direction of the juvenile court judges. And so the abuse, dependency, and neglect system in Hamilton County is very large. In fact, just like the majority of children that are removed from or that are involved in the delinquency side of the juvenile court, the majority that are African American, the majority also that are removed from their homes are African American. Now that's where you'll see a broader cross section of diversity because it impacts people from every walk of life and from every race. Where children are being removed from their homes, they're placed in a foster care system, and then we have to make decisions as to whether they stay in foster care, whether they eventually go back home to their parents, or whether they get adopted out. So we deal with that system, adoption, the foster care. We deal with the paternity and custody issue. So if you have an issue but you're fighting, the families are fighting, and somebody wants to gain custody of that child, where does it go? It goes to the juvenile court system. And so the juvenile court judge, which I am currently a suspended judge because of everything that's going on, but in the system, I would be overseeing that entire process. So not just, again, the kids that are caught up in the delinquency aspect, but entire families are appearing in court because we're making decisions, very critical decisions, as to an entire family's well-being. And so if I have a dependency case in my courtroom, that case involves a whole lot of people, social workers from the Department of Human Services. It involves the parents who then are usually represented by the Public Defender's Office. Each parent is entitled to have their own representation. Then you have a guardian ad litem representing that child and making sure that whatever happens in that court is done in the best interest of the child. So there's just a whole family dynamic surrounding juvenile court. If a father, as Mr. Livingston pointed out, he gets caught up in child support or not paying his child support and he's held in contempt, he could be sent to jail. And honestly, I remember years ago, before becoming judge, one of the things that used to bother me was the fact that when the men, and hear me, women, because I know women get really upset, but I know that, oftentimes the men get caught up in the system and they don't pay their child support and they end up in jail. Well, oftentimes when they end up in jail, then they lose their ability to work. So if they had a job, now they lose their job. So now they don't have the ability to pay child support. Now, I'm not talking about the people that just don't want to pay child support, because you have that group as well, and that's a whole different subject matter. But I'll just leave it at this. There's a huge involvement of the juvenile court in almost every aspect and facet of our society, and it hits us especially in the African American community at a highly disproportionate rate. So that means there are more children that are removed from their homes, there are more children of color that are in the foster care system, there are more children of color that are permanently displaced. Then you have a large number of young people that we aren't even aware that get emancipated because they've been in the system for so long that there's no place for them to go. They can't be sent back home depending on decisions that are made. They're too old to adopt or no one adopts them. And then we end up emancipating these children. And a lot of these young people are living on their own. And they're not ready to live on their own. And so these are the type of dynamics as a juvenile court judge that I was dealing with every single day. And it was grueling work. Trying to make life decisions for people and taking the time to try to make the right decision. Because oftentimes, and one of the things that happened to me is they sued me repeatedly. I started getting sued by the public defender's office before I got off the bench, and they said that I wasn't ruling in the time frame that they wanted me to rule. But the frustration of it was that the cases that they were accusing me of not ruling in were cases that had been backlogged in the juvenile court system for many, many years prior to my arrival. And many of these cases were already way out of time. For instance, when a child is taken from their home, by law, the court has 90 days to adjudicate that child and to determine whether or not that child is going to be adjudicated as abused, neglected, or dependent. Well, what I was inheriting were cases that had been in the system so long that sometimes the adjudication, which was supposed to take 90 days, actually had taken years. And so I'm trying to unravel, literally, what happened in a case that had been in the system for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then try to make a determination as to what is in the best interest of that child. And so when you're dealing with a case that has been out of time for 5 years by the time it lands at your doorstep, that's a humongous burden and responsibility, and it takes time. So it was just very interesting that even the Casey Foundation had done a study on juvenile court long before I arrived, and the results came out while I was at the juvenile court, and the results showed that in the Hamilton County juvenile court system that it was taking too long for our children to be processed through the system. That was not a problem that was created by Judge Hunter. That was a problem that had already been identified by outside organizations long before I arrived, but somehow they tried to dump it in my lap and say, oh, she's taking too long to rule on cases. Well, you took 4 or 5 years to do an adjudication that was supposed to take 90 days. I have to figure out what's going on here, because when I do rule in this matter, I want to make sure that it's the right ruling. So there were just a lot of things that people are not aware that had our system totally backlogged. And I would have attorneys that would literally come to my office and say, Judge, I can't believe they're trying to blame this on you. Everybody knows that the elephant in the room is that the cases in juvenile court are behind. I had one attorney that said, I haven't even been on the public defender's list in several years, but I'm still doing cases because that's how far behind the cases are here at juvenile court. So,
okay, I want to make sure that we do something before we go to a break, because I want to talk about, well, why is it that so many cases come to juvenile court? You know, you're not the largest county in Ohio.
Third largest.
You're the third largest, but I think you put more people in juvenile court than anybody else. Is that correct?
We bind over more children to the adult system in the state of Ohio than any other county, and that includes Cuyahoga, which is the largest county, and Franklin County, which is the second largest county.
You know, so I think the issues, and certainly I'm glad that you were able to kind of, you know, give some light to, you know, that issue. But the point of the matter is you got so many cases. I mean, is it that people are just you know, what you call it? People are not just delinquent inherently. And then the other thing it has to be is are we doing the broken window theory in our school system? Are we sending our children through the court system, through the juvenile court system, to punish them for things that happen in the school system that maybe could have taken another route?
I definitely think, unfortunately, that we are penalizing children for behavior and conduct that used to be attributed to children just being children, quite honestly. And, for instance, one of the reasons that I unshackled the children in my courtroom, and, again, there's a push, the national experts say that that we should be doing that, and that's something that I didn't wait for the national experts to tell me to do. I knew it was the right thing to do, and so I instituted no shackling policy in my courtroom. I was told by the persons who were greatly opposed to me unshackling the children that, well, we won't be able to control them. They run real fast. They know karate, all these kinds of things. And I just looked at it from even, a cultural perspective. To me, the Bible says you raise up a child in the way they should go. When they're old, they shall not depart. I don't see my children as animals, so I'm not going to treat you like an animal. But when you come and sit down in my courtroom, I expect you to sit there and behave. I didn't have one problem with the children once I established what the expectation was. And if there was ever, I don't think I had 2 occasions, one child kicked my wall one day, one threw a piece of paper. I talk to him like a mother would talk to him, not just a judge, but I talk to him like a mother would talk to the young person, explain to them that's not the kind of conduct that we accept here, and it's not going to happen again, right? Right, never happened again. That's the type of discipline we need to get back to in our school system. Everything does not rise to a level of criminality. But when we treat children like criminals for very common behavior, children fight. It's not a good thing. They shouldn't. But every time something happens, it shouldn't rise to a level of assault or felonious. Yeah. Now, some instances there are. Don't get me wrong. Because we have a high number of gun cases in my courtroom. In fact, that's predominantly what I dealt with as a juvenile court judge. Most of the cases are heard by the magistrates, but when it rises to the level of gun violence or weapons being used, and unfortunately, they are being used. We had AK-47s that were in our evidence room. How does a child get an AK-47? I don't know. But I do know this. We still have to distinguish the difference between those extreme behaviors and those things that we as adults, taking control of our environment, should be able to control without criminal involvement, if that makes sense.
Let me do this. I'm so glad that you were able to clarify that for me. We're going to talk when we come back. We're talking with Judge Tracy M. Hunter. And, of course, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the support that children get and whether or not that has any bearing on the adjudication as well as the sentencing of that child. You talked about the fact that you had support there. When children don't have support, does that have any bearing? We'll talk about that and much, much more on this segment of You Got the Power. We got Judge Pastor Tracy M. Hunter as our guest. We'll be right back. Stay close.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. 1, 2, snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at your boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk kid in Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work. There's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control of my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today?
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day.